start recording now. So let's continue. Last time we finished with looking at an example of a blockchain, right? And how hashing is used in blockchains. We also have a reference to the previous block hash. Okay, next let's try to look at the importance of how these connections work, okay? For that I want to start first with defining what is a correct block and what is incorrect block, or valid block or invalid block, okay? So a valid block is a block that includes all of the transactions that are correctly verified. So if you don't have 10 bitcoins, right, you only have 3 bitcoins, you cannot have a transaction when you are sending 10 bitcoins because you only have 3, right? So all of these, of course, should agree, right? But there are also some additional requirements. So for example, in this particular example, right, the requirement for a block to be valid is for the hash of the block to start with 4 zeros. Not any kind of hash, but particularly to start with 4 zeros. This is just an example, simple example of an additional requirement. In the real Bitcoin blockchain, the requirements are quite different, right? So, for example, if I change anything in this block, okay? So, for example, if I first let me explain what are these components so that I can change something that is not really important. So all of the transactions are really important because it's sending money between people, right? Is that right? That's important. That's money sending, right? Okay. So this additional extra bitcoins created also is important. So the block number is not extremely important. Here's a number that is not very important. Nonce. Okay, just some number. Okay. Let's change this. Let me change it to this. It becomes red, meaning that the block is not valid. Okay? You see, what do we mean by an invalid block? Well, this guy is still sending this guy the same amount. This guy is still sending this guy the same amount. All transactions are okay. So according to the first part of this statement, all transactions are still okay, but the block is not okay because there are some additional requirements. Like the hash doesn't start with 4 zeros anymore, right? The hash doesn't start with 4 zeros anymore. So why does the hash need to start with a given number of zeros? Because that is how mining works, okay? I lost that writing, yes? Because that's how mining works. Let's give an example for that. So, a valid block, right? All transactions are verified and additional requirements are met, right? So what are the additional requirements? For example, a requirement of number of zeros in the front of the hash, of the block hash. So that's how competition for mining works. Remember I told you that not all miners get this reward. Where was the reward? Here. Not all miners get this reward of 6.25 bitcoins every 10 minutes. Only one miner, who is the first to solve the hashing problem, right, will get that reward, right? So how do we determine who is the first? Well, we have a list of transactions to enter into a new block. Let's say we have all these old blocks over here, right? Many blocks, many pages of blocks. They're all connected, right? And now we're trying to create a new block. It's unfinished for now, so the miners are still competing on trying to create it. Let me check if everything is recording. Looks like everything is recording, right? So we have Alice sending bitcoins to Bob, Bob sending bitcoins to David, thank you. All of these transactions to be inserted into a new block, right? But the block need to have a hash as well, and the additional requirement is that the hash must have some zeros first and then some other things. What after that, it doesn't really matter because it's a one-way function, but let's say the requirement is some given number of zeros. So because it's a one-way function, you cannot derive the original block from this function because it's only one-way function. It's supposed to go only one way, from the block information down to the hash. So what miners actually do, right, is they add this nonsensical piece of information to the block that doesn't have any meaning. It's called nonce. Nonce is just a random number that's added to the block to make sure that the hash will have the required number of zeros. So if you try over here, let's try 0. Does it have enough zeros? No. This block is still not valid. Let's try next number 1. So I'm now mining. I'm trying to find the correct block with the correct number of zeros. By hand, of course, it's very slow. So I can do it electronically. There is a button mine over here. Let me click it. In response to that, the computer will try many numbers over here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, blah, 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 until just by chance the hash of that block will start with 4 zeros. It takes so much power that nearly the website crashes. We keep waiting. Oh, you see, it took 172,517 attempts for this computer, right, to find this random number, so that finally the hash has the required number of zeros in the front and the block becomes valid. It's all green. Everything is okay. So that's how mining works. Because hashing is only one-way function, we put a requirement on the output like, okay, let's have 4 zeros in the front. Because it's a one-way function, you can't say, okay, we need to have this information here, then we'll win the mining race. No, we don't know what should go in here. So we just try all the different combinations just with random numbers from 0 to whatever until finally we get the required number of zeros over here. And the computer that is the fastest to do that, right, to find the correct block, will get this reward. Okay, that's how mining works. Well, I guess I can leave this as number 5. Okay, and that is an example, okay, of the block being mined. Okay, now next example, what if I change something to the block, right? Let's say, for example, you sell me your house for 7 bitcoins, right? So a bitcoin is now worth 50,000 US dollars times 7, that's $350,000. Good enough for a house, right? So let's say this is my address, let's say this is your address. I sent to you 7 bitcoins for the price for the value of 1 house, okay? Now we change the deeds on the house, we change the ownership name on the house, it now belongs to me. And let's say I want to change back the blockchain, so I didn't pretend I didn't send you these 7 bitcoins, right? Let me check, what if instead of 7 I'll try to put 1 here, right? So that instead of 7 bitcoins it will appear, right, on the blockchain that looks like I only paid you 1 bitcoin for the house rather than 7, okay? So I enter 1 here. Okay, and of course the new hash doesn't agree with the requirements, right? So this transaction is not accepted. This whole block actually is not accepted. Well, what if I have my own mining farm? I showed you an example of a mining farm somewhere here, right? What if I have my own mining farm and try to remine the block, right? Okay, let's try that. I could do that, yes, and it looks like I could get away with cheating, pretending I paid 7 bitcoins for your house. After I got the house, I change it to 1 bitcoin. If I have a mining farm, I change this block, right? Okay, but you see that this type of cheating is more difficult when we go further back in history. So let's say, for example, I'll reload this F5. Everything is back to normal. So let's say it's not 10 minutes ago that I got your house from you. Let's say I got your house from you, I don't know, a couple of days ago in some of the previous blocks. I paid 10 bitcoins for that house. Now I'm going to change it to 1. Yes, you see that in order for me to catch up with the blockchain, I have to remine 3 blocks, not 1. So I have to remine this one. Let's wait. Okay, then let's remine this one. Let's wait. Okay, got it. And then let's remind this one. Okay, wait. Come on. And wait again, come on. And hopefully the website will not complain to. Okay, got it, right? So when I go back, further back into history, I need to remine more blocks. But remember, I'm just one guy with a mining farm, and there are hundreds of other mining farms all over the world who are also competing to actually add more blocks, right? So if I try to cheat in a more older transaction, it just simply becomes impossible, because even if I have 3 mining farms, each with 1,000 computers in those mining farms, the rest of the world has dozens and dozens and dozens of mining farms, each with several thousand computers in each of those mines, right? I will never be the first to win the puzzle 3 times in a row against the rest of the world, right? So, for that reason, there is an industry standard in cryptocurrencies, in Bitcoin, and in other transactions, and in other cryptocurrencies. When you are selling something for Bitcoins or for other cryptocurrencies, for example, you are selling me this car or whatever, right? If I send you the Bitcoins on your phone, once you see the Bitcoins coming, right, it's better if you don't give away the car keys immediately, because if it's only one block, that is the most recent where the transaction is over here, right? I just can change it if I have a mining farm. If I don't have a mining farm, I can't change it. But if I do have a mining farm, and it's an expensive car for 7 Bitcoins, so I have some incentive to change it back to 1 and remine it, I'm competing against the rest of the world, but still maybe I have small chance of winning. Then actually you will receive only 1 Bitcoin for your car instead of the expected 7 Bitcoins, right? But instead, if you wait for more blocks to come out after that transaction, and blocks on average come out every 10 minutes, right? Then it will be virtually impossible, okay, for me to change that transaction, because I'm competing against the rest of the world, right? And it's basically impossible for me to win 3 times in a row while the rest of the world is trying to build more and more blocks on top, right? So the industry standard for most cryptocurrency exchanges, here's an example of an exchange that works in Taiwan. There are many other cryptocurrency exchanges all over the world in many countries. The industry standard is 6 blocks, okay? So with this kind of exchanges which work with millions and millions of dollars every day, right? Even for them, just waiting for 6 blocks is enough, right? So if you are selling your car or you're selling your house for Bitcoins, you don't need to wait for like a couple of days to make sure, oh yeah, now this guy cannot change those transactions. Somewhere around 6 confirmations is already nearly impossible for anybody to change, going all the way back 6 blocks, because they will be racing against the rest of the world in trying to mine all of the further blocks. Okay, so that's how the blocks are connected, right? So if I change anything in this transaction, they are connected because this hash is referenced in the next block, and its hash is referenced in the next block, and they're all broken. Okay, so what we are learning from here is that all the transactions, so let me perhaps change this a little bit. All the transactions are much harder, say impossible to change compared to recent transactions. Okay, and the industry standard, never mind your car for just a small amount of money, even for large exchanges which deal with millions of dollars every day, okay, after your transaction. Now, if you download the wallet to your phone or to your computer and have a look at the number of blocks after your transaction, whatever, it doesn't really show you that, because not many people are learning anything about blockchain. They just know how to use this software on the phone, but they don't know how it works. So if you look at the wallet, it's not going to tell you that there are 6 blocks after your transaction. What it's going to tell you is that there are 6 confirmations. Okay, so basically it's just a different way of saying the same thing. Number of confirmations of any kind of transaction, it means how many blocks have already been written on top of that transaction. If there are more blocks on top of that transaction, it will be more and more impossible to change anything about that transaction. Okay, so that's what we've learned now. Let's save it as number 5, picture number 5. Okay, and our last subtopic, let's go to 6. Save it as 6. Whew. Our last subtopic is digital signatures. I'll start with a general understanding of digital signature, and then I'll move on to how it's used in the blockchain. Okay, so first let's forget about digital. Do you guys know what is a signature? Well, let's have a document over here. Here's a document. There's a document, right? And to make sure that this document is coming from me, not from any kind of enemy, I sign it, right? My signature, that is a signature, right? So basically it just shows that the document is really coming from me, and it's coming together with this information, right? It doesn't actually break up the information. I don't sign on top of this information, right? I sign at the bottom. Okay, so that's generally what is a signature. I'm sure you know that, but let's apply that to a digital signature. So now let's say I have a digital document, right? Here's a document. Okay, let's have some information there, a lot of information over here, right? There's a digital document. Okay, and now this guy wants to send this document to this guy. Perhaps this is Bob, and perhaps this is Alan. Okay, A and B, Alan and Bob. Okay. Now let's say, for example, we are in a hostile environment. If these two are best friends and they're just exchanging information hand to hand, there is no reason to believe that information was changed, because they really know each other and they're exchanging this digital file hand to hand. But in that case, perhaps you don't need any kind of signature. You are just communicating with your best friend. But let's say this is in a hostile environment, right? So these two people are sending some information to each other, but we don't know, maybe the enemy can catch this information in the way and change the data, right? So maybe I'm sending some information here. I'm gonna pay you like $1,000 if you meet me at 2 p.m. somewhere here, right? This is information, okay? But let's say there is a competing company. I want to have a meeting to discuss some very important business. We can make millions of dollars together, right? And there is another guy who wants to instead do business with Bob. He doesn't want me to do business with Bob. He wants himself to do business with Bob. So let's say he catches my document, right? And wants to change something here. So he's gonna change this, because it's electronic document, right? He's gonna just delete something here, and he's gonna change this here like this, put another 2 here. So okay, looks a bit like correct. Then Bob will not meet me for the very important meeting, right? That's a bad thing for me. I don't want it. But my competitor, that's what they wanted. We're enemies. Okay? So in order to avoid this kind of misunderstanding, we have digital signatures, and this is how they work. Okay? So let's go back to the original information. So in addition to the digital document, what I would do as well is I just hash this. So let's say SHA-256 hash. Okay? Let's go there. Where is the, okay, here. So let's say $1,000, meet me at 2 p.m. right? Here's the hash, FAE 1022, and the rest I'm not gonna take it, it's too long, so let's just put it there. Where is it? I was here. So hash will give me, oh, let me just use the arrow. Where's the arrow? The hash will give me what was that? 1022. This is the hash, and I'm gonna say and I'm also, remember about encryption, I'm also going to encrypt the hash using my private key. So using my private key, I'm going to encrypt the hash, and encryption is gonna give me something completely different, right? So whatever it is, let me just write something here. Blah, 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 something, something, right? That will be the encrypted version of FAE 1022, right? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send all of this to my future business partner, right? And I'm going to give him my public key. Because it's public, I can give it to anyone, okay? So what is Bob going to do? Bob is going to take this message, right? And independently do the hashing. Let me take this. So again, hash, and see, does it give the same number, FAE 1022? So for example, if some enemy caught this communication in the middle and changed some information, they don't want me to have a business with Bob, they change this down to 10 so Bob doesn't like me, and they change it to 22 so we never meet, right? The hash is completely different. It's not FAE 1022 anymore. So when Bob receives this message, you see they already changed it. This is 22, right? They already changed it, and this also is changed, right? Bob hashes it, he receives a completely different hash, and he will know that something happened to this message, right? He will know that some enemy has done something to this message, okay? Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is, let's say everything is fine, okay? Let's say everything is fine and the actual hash is the same. Let's say the actual hash is the same. In that case, he will know that nothing has been done to this message. The original message did not change. And, okay, what he does is he also takes this blah, 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 right? And decrypt it. Because with encryption, we also have decryption, right? So with the public key, he will decrypt it, and it should give him again that same hash. If it does, he will know that this message is actually really coming from me, because public key can only decrypt what has been encrypted by a private key, and hopefully I'm still the only one who is holding the private key. It's quite tricky, but once you review this, perhaps after you watch this video again on Moodle, I hope you do understand. If you have any questions, you can ask me those questions whenever you have time. Okay, so that's how digital signature works, right? It helps you to do two things. Let's make some space here. It helps you to make sure that there were no changes to the original message, right? That's one function of the digital signature, and the second function of the digital signature is to make sure that the original sender is the appropriate one, or the intended one, right? Okay? So that's really good. I know that nobody has changed the original message, and I know that the message is coming from Alan, not from anybody else. So that is used by that is achieved with the use of two functions. One hash function and one is asymmetric key encryption, right? Let's save it. Okay, it's saved. So the last subtopic is how does it all apply to blockchain? Okay. So as you look at every transaction, this is transaction number 1, this is transaction number 2, transaction number 3, and transaction number 4 in this block. You see that each transaction shows the amount, the sender, and the receiver. And also the transaction shows the signature. Here, sig, actually they mean signature. This is the digital signature. Okay, so if I try to change anything here, okay, change it to 1, we know the block is broken because the hash doesn't start with 4 zeros anymore. If I have a mining farm and just if I'm lucky to win against the rest of the world to race, to compete, who will be the first to solve it, okay, if the block is fine, you still know that something is wrong with this particular transaction. Because as you see, the signature doesn't match. The signature does not match. If you take all of the information of this transaction and take a SHA-256 hash of it, the hash will not be the same. Okay. Right now the hash is 3045. Hit F5 to change it. Yeah, with 7 it's 3045. With 1 it will be different, but it should be 3045. Okay. So that is how digital signature is applied to blockchain. That is all. Questions? Let me stop the recording.